Welcome on, welcome all. Thank you for tuning in to Cedar Radio, your guide to films playing at the Art House for the week of May 24th to May 30th. My name is Aaron Spears.
And I'm Dave Huffman. On this week's episode, we'll be discussing Biggest Little Farm, Booksmart, Photograph, and The White Crow.
We'll also be discussing two very different versions of female revenge and empowerment films. One more streaming service enters into the mix, and our Cedar 3 picks for School's Out. Well, we always like to start off the show with the last scene first. So, Dave, what is the last film you've seen?
The last movie I saw is a film that I'd never even heard of until yesterday.
Ooh, I like a quiz. All right.
And I don't know that anybody else has ever heard of this movie. It's pretty obscure. It's a film called The Witch Who Came from the Sea from 1976. It's, nope. It's by Matt Cimber, who mostly did like blaxploitation movies in the 70s and stuff like that. But this is a very strange movie about a woman kind of psychologically scarred from childhood trauma who, exacts her revenge on, men and it becomes like kind of a serial killer as she gets revenge on these men that haven't even wronged her. They're just
was there like a incident or
no, like she's just so mentally disturbed that she just starts going at him with razors.
All right,
it's a weird. It's not really a horror movie, but it's kind of horror, but it's also very arty. Like it's a very strange film. It's actually the same cinematographer that did Halloween. Worked on this.
Okay.
It's got beautiful kind of widescreen cinematography and very odd movie, especially like considering what his other films were. Like it just kind of, I don't know. I want to do a little more research about the whole origins of it and why he made this movie, because it's a very strange film. I would definitely recommend it, but it's a weird one. Yeah,
like an actual is she a witch? Like using curses or just
no? It's referencing like art, like Venus coming from the ocean. And there's a scene where they talk about that she's the witch who came from the sea, and
it's really deep for a exploitation film.
And there's some imagery with like mermaids and stuff in it.
Okay,
and so there's that kind of thing. But it's it's weird. Like she basically just becomes obsessed with men that she sees on TV. Like she's obsessed with this guy who's like in a shaving commercial, and then she finds him, seduces him, and then
to murder them.
But she's so like deranged she doesn't even know that she did it. You know what I mean? Like she just has these blackout kind of things.
Gotcha.
And then she doesn't even know that she did it. It's a weird little movie. I'm glad I watched it.
Was it streaming somewhere, or was it?
It was a link from the America Genre Film Archive.
Oh, okay.
They had sent. I have access to like some of their stuff, and I was just kind of doing a deep dive on other miscellaneous things, and I was like, what is this movie? And it just sounded very intriguing.
It's a good title.
I watched that one. I don't know that there would ever be a place to book it and show it, except for maybe it's sort of like a female revenge kind of like film series or something.
Sure.
But that would be about it.
Yeah.
Well,
and sometimes the art house is in your home.
Yes, the art house was definitely my home last night. And what did you watch, Aaron?
I watched, I think I can transition here, a different type of female revenge in a non-murderous, politically active kind of way, especially in the kind of assault on women's sovereignty that we're in right now. Documentary that premiered at South by Southwest called Knock Down the House.
Oh, okay.
That ended up unfortunately going right to Netflix, because I think there would be life for this, and that, like we've been saying, and we'll mention later on the show, the documentaries that hit in the art house that people do want to come out and see together with the crowd and have a conversation, all that. This one is Rachel Lear. She's actually one of those cinematographer and directors. She's been doing documentary work. It follows, I had to write these down because I wasn't going to remember all four names. It's Corey Bush, Paula Jean, Amy Valea, and Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez as they start their campaigns, run their campaigns, going for the House, which has that, what was the film with JFK, Primary?
Oh, right.
The doc from, 1960-ish, I want to say, where you're sort of following a campaign, and now like knowing what happened with all of those races too. It was fascinating to see them on the ground floor, like when AOC and these other women like actually meet for the first time and they're getting organized and starting their campaigns. You're like, I know how this ends. And it's really exciting, but it's also really inspiring because it's a portrait of success in her case, but defeat in the case of the other three women, but only defeat in an electoral sense. They're still very active. They're more passionate than ever. They have connections way more than when they started to actually get work done, and they're also concentrating either running again or changing what they wanted to change in their home area and in their jurisdiction.
It's
so
it's very rare for people to win on their first time that they run. So you
That's
learn
true
a
too.
lot.
Yeah.
So
and these are all like grassroots. I mean, the one lady, I think it was Amy Valea in Nevada. She had literally like spray paint stencil signs they were making to like get the word out. Like there was just it's totally grassroots. They're running because they have a purpose and a vision, and they want to accomplish something, not just like, I want to get rich or get a lobby job or whatever. Like it's very, very authentic.
They're actually running for the right reasons.
Yeah, exactly. Running for the right reasons, indeed.
Yeah, I haven't watched it yet, but it's one of those things that's on my list.
If you want to cheer yourself up a little bit, or the news is really getting you down, I definitely recommend this.
All right.
Yeah, it's really good.
I don't know, Aaron. Every time I watch the news, it's just always so good. All the positive things happening in the world.
The couple of bits of buzz this weekend was we were at Cleveland Cinemas was at VegFest here in Cleveland, and there's a lot of locals saying like, I love coming to see a lot of mentions of Capitol as well.
Nice.
Because this is more downtown centered. It's weird when you're in a city how like people are like, I don't go all the way to the west side or all the way to the east side or all the way to the south side. You're like,
that 20 minutes or 15 minutes away is just I
get it if you don't have car access to transportation, that's one thing, but it's like it's not that bad.
It's not that far. I
but,
make that drive every day.
Being like a vegan festival, though, it was funny that people just walked up like, is it like vegan cinemas? And I was like, what
does that
mean?
Well, but in a way, previously film was not vegan because there's the gelatin in film. So now that we're digital, I guess we are a more vegan-friendly cinema now.
And we always mention like the popcorn is vegan and other things. We sell vegan cookies, but I would also give that person a hug if they asked about film that way, because that's somebody who knows film and film history so well that it'd be like.
There actually was someone I had read like an article about a person who is so strict about their kind of animal activism and things like that they actually did not support the film industry for that reason.
Okay.
Yeah. So there was one person in an article I read years ago about that.
Yeah.
So now, maybe that's something we need to get the word out.
There you go.
So yes, we are vegan cinemas. What do you think, Aaron?
Sounds good. The other one to mention was, did you see that we did not experience it here in Cleveland, but there were some protests against the documentary Hail Satan that went on at the Music Box in Chicago.
No,
that were
I didn't.
Like anti-Satan protesters,
people not knowing what the movie's about.
And I was like, man, I really wish we could have had that, because it's on me. Come on in, check it out. At that point, but unfortunately,
we were talking about this. That I think that the title of that film hurt the movie because people, I don't know if they think it's, like a pro-Satan, satanic temple movie.
And if you're not that engaged and you just see that title, maybe you would think that.
If you see the film, it really, like I said, I think a better title would have been something, like The Devil and the First Amendment, because that's what it's really about.
Right.
Kind of protecting First Amendment rights, and it's a great little doc. So,
and if you have time, rush out the day this episode comes out. The last day for it is Thursday, and it's definitely one to catch. It's very engaging, very interesting documentary.
And that's here at the Cedarly, and it is actually playing at the Capitol as well.
And we mentioned the little doc that could, as documentaries hit with audiences. We are keeping Hesburgh around. Yeah. It's still going strong, and people are seeing it more than once as well. Like it's one of those. They're like, oh, my buddy, like I needed to get him to see it, so they just brought their friend, to come see the movie.
Yeah, right now that and Amazing Grace are the films that are really clicking with the audiences.
Yeah. Hopefully another one we'll be mentioning here in just a little bit. We've also sort of tracked with Art House News over the course of the podcast the plethora of streaming options that just every time we're like, there can't be any more, right?
Yeah. Well, but there can, Aaron.
There can.
Yeah.
I guess it depends on what your catalog is as a company. Right. Like we mentioned, Ovid was more of a collective of smaller distributors trying to get their audience, their films to a larger audience.
Right.
Makes total sense. In this case, we have IFC. Their catalog is
vast.
How deep? Yeah. It's amazing.
Yes.
They have their own channel. I mean, it's a massive media company at this point. They're starting their own streaming service, IFC Films Unlimited.
See, now an IFC one, that kind of makes sense to me, since they've already had a channel and they have an established
and a brand.
They have a brand. They have this huge catalog, so I can understand them maybe having enough content to keep that going. Whereas we were talking about Music Box having one.
Right.
Music Box is great. They've had a tremendous library of films.
Yeah, they distribute films. They run an art house.
It's not quite as substantial as the IFC one.
Yeah, it has like an IFC Junior kind of vibe to it. Yeah.
So it'll be interesting to see how long, who knows how much it actually costs them to sustain these. It's probably a lot of like setting things up, those costs, and maintaining the servers. But what is the ongoing maintenance cost of keeping a streaming service going?
Right.
Who knows? But obviously, like when Warner Brothers had their Warner Archive streaming service, they eventually folded that, and
That's a pretty niche thing.
Right,
Like that
that
maybe needs to be
was-
part of a bigger collective like an Ovid, or you just do a deal with Netflix or some other streaming company at that point.
Well, they ended up folding into Filmstruck, and then of course we know what happened to
and then that
Filmstruck.
one,
And then,
that's just a domino.
It's who knows? It's a constantly changing landscape until they figure it all out.
So from the consumer end of that, though, I was just like, oh, does that mean? Because I'm interested in IFC's catalog because as I was looking through the stuff they put out, it was like, oh, I forgot. Oh, my God, I forgot.
Right.
And if that's the only way I can get to it, I was like, well, that might be worth a little bit. But I don't have cable for a reason. Like I didn't want that giant bill that I'm slowly accumulating a cable-sized bill of streaming services.
That's exactly right.
But it's also, that's the modern video store, I think, as well. I mean, that's just what you have to do there. The Cannes Film Festival is wrapping up as we are recording this on Tuesday morning. So, it's full of movies that are probably here locally going to play at the Cinematheque a lot of times, but also the Art House gets a good number of the big Cannes ones. One that I'd mentioned when we were talking about our movies we're looking forward to in 2019 is The Lighthouse, Robert Pattinson and Willem Dafoe, Robert Eggers' follow-up to The Witch. And the headline I just wanted to mention was Robert Pattinson and Willem Dafoe are nautical madmen and gripping psychodrama. So I actually didn't read the review because I don't want too many spoilers or anything. But I was like, I saw the headline. I was like, I'm in. Yep. I'm more excited now than I was before.
And I was excited to see that Terrence Malick's movie is apparently, has a narrative plot to it. And it's actually, people say it's kind of a return to form and his most accessible film and most successful film since Tree of Life. And some people would say,
I was going to say, I love that headline.
An accessible movie, but this one apparently is more so than that.
Exactly.
And the article it starts with something like based on real events, as it's almost like reassuring the audience, like there's a
narrative
story here. So
I've got a story for you. Sit tight. We'll be right back with the new films opening this week here at the theater. The first film opening this week is Biggest Little Farm, the documentary from John Chester. He is a documentarian who he and his wife Molly worked to develop a sustainable farm on 200 acres outside of Los Angeles.
This all started with a promise that we'd leave the big city and build a life in perfect harmony with nature, like a traditional farm from the past.
Here we are, Apricot Lane Farms.
Molly and John are very happy about this. What do you think of this, Todd?
This is what we're fighting.
Our version of a farm would be different. Plants, wildlife, livestock, all working together.
Here they are, Emma the pig and Mr. Greasy the rooster. Friends for life.
We wanted to believe that everything had a purpose. We had our plan. And nature had hers.
This feels overwhelming.
Those are not words I've normally put together. 200-acre farm just outside Los Angeles. I just picture desert, I guess. I don't know what reason I have for that, but
and it more or less is like it's a fascinating story where this couple who had no real farming experience, she was sort of a nutritionist and dietitian who really was focused on kind of wanting to make sure that they could just grow their own foods and kind of had this sustainable goal. And they got a consultant of a guy who did this kind of farming, found basically an abandoned farm that was just a dust bowl.
Oh, okay.
And
so it was what I was picturing.
Yeah, and about an hour north of LA, and just transformed the landscape, turned the pumps back on from the aquifer underneath it, and transformed it into this amazing, vibrant farm they did it over, I
like
think
8 years,
7 or 8 years, I think, in the film where, and it's about the development and how it's not only just, it's not just like most farms where they're like, oh, we're growing corn, we're growing this. Like they were growing like something like 85 different kinds of like stone fruit trees in their orchard, a lot more than people would just like, we're not just growing peaches, we're growing all these different kinds of things. And it's all about the biodiversity of the ecosystem and how important that is and how this helps to balance that. And
it's like everything's there for a reason.
Right. Everything's there for a reason, So all of these, the symbiotic relationship between not only just the animals that they have on their farm, using the waste from the animals to help fertilize the ground. And then, then whenever the animals from just nature start coming back in,
Right,
what do we do now that we've got all these great fruit trees, but now we've got flocks of birds that want to eat all of our fruit, that are just part of nature,
or insects or infestations and things that come about.
And then they're like, oh well, but we have all these ducks that can eat all the snails. It's like all this like balance of keeping everything in check. So it's an interesting film, and it's got beautiful cinematography.
I'll say he's a cinematographer.
He was a cinematographer by trade. Was what he started with. So it's got a lot of gorgeous cinematography. So it's a film that really works on the big screen.
Terrence Malick level nature cinematography.
Not that level,
just,
but it's a really pretty film.
I think I mentioned before on the show when I brought my daughter and my mom to see Cat Video Fest, and we played the trailer for Biggest Little Farm, and it was like a sold out crowd from like the oohs and ahs of the what's the odd relationship in this one? It's like a pig and a duck.
There's a chicken,
a pig and a
rooster,
chicken.
Yeah,
they highlight that in the trailer. Like the whole place was just and the photography that they show just in the trailer. Again, we had to see it on the big screen. The trailer. The nature photography was just like, and my daughter was just like, I really want to see this movie. I was like, I bet you do. And since we were just talking about VegFest and veganism, any vegan alerts in this movie? So I mean, it is like a sustainable farm. It's not a vegan farm.
Yeah, it is not. So. It is not a strictly vegan farm. They are raising, chickens for eggs and animals for food. So,
but it is PG rated. So it's not
PG rated. There's no like slaughter footage or things like that. But there's, it's just the natural cycle of life, and there's, fighting off with, there's coyotes that are coming in and attacking, their livestock and things like that. So it's about those kind of challenges more than about, the preparation of anything that they might be doing for that kind of part of the business side of the farm. I think it'll definitely be one that people like. And like we said, people are always hungry for documentaries here. Yeah. And speaking of films that have beautiful photography, the next film we're opening up is a film called Photograph. It is by Ritesh Batra, who also directed the Lunchbox that we played at the Cedar a few years ago. This is a film about a struggling street photographer in Mumbai, pressured to marry by his grandmother, convinces a shy stranger to pose as his fiancée.
And you were quite a fan of The Lunchbox.
I love The Lunchbox.
I did too. Like, it was just a fun...
Just a quiet, beautiful little movie that kind of has all these nice cultural details that you're probably not familiar with unless you grew up in India. That, it's a whole... the details of just how people's lunches are delivered.
Like a lunchbox service. I would love to have this.
It's a really, and all these basically like women that just make these incredible, delicious meals and then deliver them in these tiffins. I think that's what they're called, tiffins.
I think so. The
little stackable metal containers. And I love that movie. So I haven't got to see Photograph yet, but I'm anxious to see it because I was a big fan of his other film.
It has carrying a similar like relationship theme where in Lunchbox, relationship was like in the notes that were sent through the lunchbox, and then forge a relationship. But this one is like, it starts off like forcibly like faking a relationship via the photograph and then with his grandma, and then it seems like at least according to the trailer, like the relationship builds and may become something
into
it
an
might
actual
not.
Authentic
so
one.
I like the ones where you get to see like how a relationship builds rather than will they or won't they get together, and then at the end you're like, oh, they got together, and you cheer for it. You get to actually see a relationship forming. Should mention as well, though, since it's an Indian film, this is not a Bollywood musical.
No, it is not a Bollywood musical.
The next one we have opening is from director Ralph Fiennes. Wait, I always feel like I'm mispronouncing that.
Ralph Fiennes. Yes, I think, isn't it Fiennes? I always say Fiennes.
Okay, there's an S there, but
I always say the S. But of course, he also has an L in his name that he doesn't say.
That's true.
All right, so it's
Ralph Fiennes or Ralph Fiennes. We will, say it both ways to cover our bases. It's his next, the next film that he's directed, The White Crow. It's a drama that charts Rudolf Nureyev's famed defection from the Soviet Union to the West in 1961, despite the KGB efforts to stop him.
It's a great pleasure to welcome you to France. This is the first time since the war that Leningrad's famous Kirov company have been seen in the West.
Did you dance tonight?
If I had danced, you would remember. Rudolf Nureyev.
C'était magnifique.
Thank you.
Is there any chance we could all have dinner tonight? Присмотрите за мной.
We're told not to speak to foreigners, not to go out with them, not to eat with them.
Aren't you frightened?
Monsieur Nureyev, do you think you will one day go back to Russia?
I feel I will never return to my country. There was opposition, people against me. you dream of a world that isn't this one? Зачем мне мечтать о другом мире? Everyone must have a purpose in life. I have to show the world I am the best. Whatever you do, don't leave me. If you leave me, I am finished. My name is Rudolf Nureyev. I want political asylum.
No! I know we've been showing ballets here from the Bolshoi for a very long time, and this was still somehow a ballet dancer I had never heard of.
You've never heard of Rudolf Nureyev?
And then I felt dumb immediately when I looked him up. I was like, how did I never hear about this guy before?
Wow.
This story is crazy.
That's like not having heard of, like the opera equivalent of never hearing of like Pavarotti or something. He's like that level of fame and,
No, I see that now. For the record, I have heard of Pavarotti.
Right. And also just his story was very famous too, because it's like one of those legendary kind of defections. Whenever that used to be a thing that people would do, they would defect from, the Soviet Union to the West, and sort of like they'd be touted as sort of, traitors in their own country, but sort of
they kind of celebrated it.
They would be almost used as like propaganda here in the West, as like heroic. Here's someone that's left this terrible life, in the Soviet Union and come here to America. So it's a fascinating story.
It is adapted. It's from the authorized biography that I was assuming his estate. They gave the author Julie Kavanaugh access to like papers, letters, interviews with dancers, family, friends, lovers, other relationships that he's had over the years. So it does seem like they're coming from like the most true source material they could to tell the story. And it is a very narrow focus in on. It's not a full biography of him as a dancer. It's this pivotal part, the decision that he made, which I find fascinating. Like it's a ballet thriller. I'm really kind of looking forward to checking that out. Because also, Mr. Fiennes. Other films that he's directed, we've shown here, The Invisible Woman, which was the biography of Charles Dickens. And Coriolanus, the Shakespeare adaptation, which I prefer that one a little bit more than Invisible Woman. But
I agree.
I always forget he's a director, that he's out there and he's doing some really quality directing work.
And he's done a lot of directing on the stage in England. We've shown several, I think at least 2 or 3.
The National Theatre.
Yeah, not even some of them have even been National Theatre. I think one was maybe a National Theatre. Then we've done some other kind of things that aren't part of the National Theatre. Other companies, because I think he has his own company over there.
I think you're right. Yeah, that does sound familiar.
So we showed something with like him. He directed Judi Dench in something that we played.
Yes,
and so he's been doing a lot of stage direction.
Yeah,
and I think he's done more of that than film work, but he's certainly not only a great actor, but a great director. And then the final film, speaking of actors who are now directors that we're opening up, is a new comedy by actress Olivia Wilde, who's making her feature directorial debut with a new film called Booksmart. This is a new comedy about 2 high school friends who've sort of been the good girls all through high school, and now they realize that they got into college, but so did all the kids that had all the fun in high school, and they're out to have fun before it's too late.
We have to go to a party tonight.
What?
Nobody knows that we are fun. We didn't party because we wanted to focus on school and get into good colleges.
And it worked.
But the irresponsible people who partied also got into those colleges.
I'm incredible at hand jobs, but I also got a 1560 on the SATs.
We haven't done anything. We haven't broken any rules.
Name one person whose life was so much better because they broke a couple of rules.
Picasso.
He broke art rules.
Rosa Parks.
Name another
Susan B. Anthony.
God damn it.
I feel like this movie's gonna be pegged as like, oh, it's the female Superbad, or oh, it's the female. Which I mean, you need a hook to get people to see it.
And it is frequently being described as the female Superbad, but it is. It got incredibly great reviews out of South by Southwest where it premiered, and right now I think it's currently at 100% on Rotten Tomatoes. Yeah. It looks hilarious. I can't wait. I'm so glad we're showing it here at the Cedar Lee. It's also playing at some of our other locations like the Capitol and Chagrin Cinemas, so if you're closer to one of those, you have a chance to see it there. But it is just... Again, we always talk about how so many of the movies are playing here are more heavy and dark, and this is just an all-out comedy with just great. It is rated R because there's definitely adult content involving teens. I love whenever if you read like the MPAA reading, it's like all involving teens, because that makes it more questionable. Since the MPAA is for parents, so they're saying like they don't want to wrongly influence children, I guess, but it is probably a more accurate depiction of what high school kids really are like. So, and it's a strong female director guiding these 2 young actresses in this great just hilarious romp.
In the vein of which I love the trend of unique composers or unique unique choices for musicians to do scores or soundtracks to movies. This one has the legendary DJ and producer Dan the Automator from Handsome Boy Modeling School, Gorillaz, Cool Keith. I mean, he's done a bunch of different works over the years. So him coming in and doing a score, I was like, interesting. I hope it's not just him selecting the music. I hope it's him actually doing some interesting musical work here as well. So it's always kind of interesting to see somebody that comes from a different world kind of adapting to, music and film is just different than just listening to music, obviously. And we'll be right back with our Cedarly 3 picks for this week. So each week we like to take inspiration from one of the new films opening and suggest 3 other films to broaden your cinematic world. This week was a pretty fun one. We took inspiration from Booksmart, as we just mentioned, 2 girls finishing up high school, decided to make up for lost time with a bunch of craziness, we'll say. So this week's idea was schools out, kids, teens, I guess. What happens when they're out of school and are faced with a bit of free time on their hands? The last couple of weeks, we've had topics where I stumbled across, we did spy films, that there was an International Spy Museum, and I was like, I need to visit this place, first of all. But they had their own list of spy films. Like, that's a good authority. Yep. Check out their list. Very good films. Last week when we did courtroom dramas, American Bar Association. Quality list, right? So where do you go when it's
schools out? So you went to
out?
the American Association of High School Kids?
I went to Teen Vogue, actually, which I found. And then through a Google search, I also found another website called the Bro Bible, which was, what a shock. Neither of them had very good lists to go on. So
what a surprise.
I just went back to my memory bank and movies that I just watched a lot when I had free time, summer vacations,
I did
Christmas
the same
breaks, all that sort of thing.
And all the lists that I was finding online, none of the ones that had popped into my head were on on any of those lists. So,
one of mine was, the other ones were not. And it wasn't very high on the list.
What's the first one on your list, Aaron?
First one on my list that I thought it was the obvious one was Dazed and Confused, which we didn't mention, but Olivia Wilde mentioned a few movies as direct inspiration for Booksmart, and what a surprise, that's one of the movies that she mentioned. The famous Richard Linklater film from 1993. I can't believe anybody isn't familiar with that.
Correct.
That's one of those movies that I remember watching in high school on endlessly, because the soundtrack's great too. We could throw it on when we were hanging out and just have good music playing, see the movie for the 18th time or whatever. And then I remember graduating high school, watching it a lot that summer, and then having revisited it over the years now, I'm like, I remember thinking, oh, I want to be, that age, I'm going to have some fun with my friends that way. And now I'm like, oh, they're kids when I watch it now. So it's really evolved to me in a weird way over the years, but that's just been there all
kids
the time.
Except for Matthew McConaughey with the famous famous line. So
same age.
That's what I love about these high school girls, man. I get older, they stay the same age.
God bless him for being super creepy.
That's not you're not wrong.
No, I'm not. And the first one on my list was a movie from just a few years ago that I don't think a lot of people saw, and they just completely missed it. It was called The Way, Way Back by Nat Faxon and Jim Rash.
You've picked this for a Cedarly 3, I think, before.
Did I already talk about
maybe
it?
It was off mic. I forget. But anyway, it's worth mentioning because it's a great movie.
I love that movie. And when I talk about, it's this boy, in the summer up with his mom and her new boyfriend.
Yep.
And played by Steve Carell. It's got an amazing cast with Steve Carell, Toni Collette, and
Sam Rockwell.
Sam Rockwell is fantastic. And, of course, Nat Faxon and Jim Rash have small parts in it as well.
Yep.
Because they're just naturally hilarious people. And it's just a movie that I don't think a lot of people saw because I think they just kind of mismarketed it or something. Yeah. And but it's a really wonderful, charming movie that, shows how this little boy it's sort of like Adventureland, where it's like someone kind of, finding their way in the summer through this amusement park.
I was never the same after that summer kind of stories.
And it's just a really wonderful movie. If you haven't seen it, please put it at the top of your list.
Because if you describe it to someone too, it's a lot of cliches on the surface, like mom's new boyfriend, beach house for the summer, vacation, part-time job at but it dives so much deeper than that, and there's such authentic characters,
and it's such a great balance of just really hilarious parts and very authentic kind of feeling drama. So it's a great movie.
Because I did not have that experience ever as a summer vacation, but I connected a lot with. I was like, I remember those awkward moments. Oh yeah, they nailed it there.
And what's next on your list?
My next one is Dazed and Confused is my high school pick, and then I had a similar relationship with a different movie going through college, which was Noah Baumbach's directorial debut, Kicking and Screaming.
Oh, great!
Which is a group of it's all white males, but that's my profile, so it connected to me. But we played this one on loop all the time in college because it's great dialogue, almost no real music to speak of, opposite from Dazed and Confused. But just it's the malaise of got finished up college. what's next?
Yeah.
Okay. And they just sort of like hang out in their college town, and it was one of those that just, again, was on repeat. We were doing quoting lines back and forth to each other all the time. I was a bit pretentious in college, I guess. We're quoting Noah Baumbach movies.
I was going to say, if you're... That's something.
What a shock that the movies I'm picking aren't on BroBible.com's list of great
really?
Great school
BroBible didn't have...
Yeah, they didn't line up with my
Baumbach.
tastes. No, not at all.
That's
so
a shock.
But it is Criterion Collection, which I highly recommend that one because there's some good commentary and special features.
It's a great movie.
It launched Noah Baumbach's career, and you can see a lot. It's one that is somewhat representative of his movies yet. So you can see what's going to be there, but it's not quite like a right out the gate, like, oh my God kind of movie. But
well, the next one on my list, I wanted to get something that was a little more female centric as well. And so I went back to Foxes from 1980,
Ooh, yeah.
Adrian Lyne's movie, which honestly, I don't know. In my mind, it takes place in the summer, but it's also just Los Angeles. They're not really in school ever. So,
I was thinking summer. You're right. Yeah.
In my mind, it's the summer. So I think it's
not
summer.
Ohio weather.
So, but I mean, their school is like never part of the story.
No.
So I assume that it's, that they aren't going to school really. So it's got Jodie Foster and Scott Baio, which now hilarious when you think about like what Scott Baio has become as an adult. And Jodie Foster, like a Fox's reunion, like if they ever did like an AFI panel discussion with the two of them, I would be fascinated.
Yeah.
Anyway, but it's a really, it's sort of kind of fun, cheesy in a way. Like it's really dated with great, like you talk about music. It's got this great disco score, and it's just these bad girls on the prowl at night, with terrible parental supervision. Has this, the mom telling the kids that there's a keg in the kitchen. As opposed to, these are not the most. These are young women who are only like 15, 16 in the film, but they're all acting like they're 30. They're dressing like they're, out at the clubs and kind of older than their years, and the ones having an affair with Randy Quaid is like,
oh my God, he is in that. Wow, I haven't seen this in a while, so it's all flooding back now as you're talking about it.
It's just, but it's about, these young women trying to mature too quickly, and the perils that is whenever you try to speed up becoming an adult.
Oh my God, so if we do a screening of that, could we get Randy Quaid and Scott Baio and Jodie Foster all together? Oh, I want to see. I want to see where that goes.
It would be amazing.
Yeah, you have to spring it on them at the last minute, like that know that other people are also coming to this reunion event. That would be pretty fun. And I was also
thinking, like, whatever happened to Adrian Lyne? Like, he hasn't made a movie in like over 15 years, I think, and I don't know if it's his health or what, or just I don't know. He was such a force for a while, especially in the 80s and the 90s.
Yeah, right, early 90s, I think. Yeah. My last one is a more recent nostalgia pick that I gambled on showing my son, who was younger at the time, Super 8.
Oh, yeah.
Because I was like, it's kids, and I wanted to get them into just like the magic of movies and sort of thing. And one, it did terrify him because he was probably a little too young to be watching that. But it's like he's the age of the kids roughly when we showed it to him. And we watched it a few times since then because he really likes that one quite a bit at this point.
I feel like it's a kind of a forgotten movie. No one really talks about it.
Because Bro Bible certainly didn't mention it when I was looking it up.
And not Teen Vogue either.
No, not Teen Vogue. Not that I remember. I didn't really commit that list to memory. But it's the 2011 J.J. Abrams film set in the summer of is it summer?
I think so.
They're not really. I mean, they're kind of near and around school because their teacher kicks off the train at the beginning and all that. But it's on my list anyway. 1979. Kids, they're making their own zombie opus. It's obviously a love letter to like Spielberg movies, and all of the references that were in that movie I used as like a jumping off point. So like, we can watch this, and when we can watch this Spielberg classic or this one. And then it also just happened that it was Stranger Things followed up a few years later, and they got into it. He was like, so they sort of, both my kids ended up getting into more like 80s nostalgia stuff there.
Gotcha.
But Super 8 was the one that kind of really started that off because it was got them interested in like how you shoot a film. We got to start talking, and I got to share one of my passions and scare them a little bit too.
That's always fun. Traumatizing children. Well, speaking of traumatized children, the last one on my list is it is, sort of bending the rules, since you usually bend the rules on these lists. This time I'm bending the rules.
All right.
So this is a different take on School's Out, which is the 1979 film by Jonathan Kaplan, Over the Edge, which was Matt Dillon's film debut. Yes. And it takes place during school, but it really is, everything about that film basically is about just juvenile delinquents on the rampage after school.
There's no emphasis on education in that movie
what
at all.
happens when school's out? And it is ultimately like these, the parents trying to regain control over just kids on just a spree, and it culminates in a very, I don't want to ruin the movie, but if you watch the trailer, it's just in the trailer as well, that basically the kids lock all the parents in the school, and they're gonna just it basically turns into a riot, and it's amazing, really unsettling, strange movie. And when I look back, and I think that's like a Warner Brothers movie. I can't remember what studio put it out, but that was a studio
movie.
That was a studio picture.
Absolutely.
There's in a million years would that movie never get made at this
not
point.
Now.
And it's a strange kind of disturbing movie, and probably one of the best juvenile delinquent movies of all time too. Yeah. It's a really cool film, and with a young Matt Dillon who really kind of, you could see that he was going to become a star.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think that's actually probably a pretty good selection also of, people have forgotten about that movie as well, too.
Yep.
So, Dave, I was surprised, no beach party movies in your school's out list.
It's my greatest regret is that I completely forgot to talk about
one of those thoughts
like a bingo.
Yeah, once we hit record, like, too late. So you wanted to mention special screening.
Yes, actually, we don't have any special events this week, so I wanted to just give a quick plug for our sister theater, The Capitol, which is going to be opening up Zhang Yimou's new film, The Shadow, or I think it's just Shadow. It's not The Shadow. His new film, Shadow, which is, a big screen epic action film. We did Chinese action movies a few weeks ago. It was one of our Cedar Lee 3 picks. This would 100% qualify to be on that list. Yeah. So if you're a fan of his films, which are amazing, I would highly recommend checking it out. It'll just be there for 1 week.
So on next week's episode, we'll be discussing 2 new films that are opening. We have The Last and Nonfiction. So next week's Cedar Lee 3 is inspired by Nonfiction, the new French romantic comedy coming out. We're going to do, speaking of broad topics, French romantic comedies. Kind of mix it up with a little bit lighter affair. As we mentioned, with every once in a while at the art house, you need to have something that's a little bit lighter, a little bit more romantic, a little bit more, effervescent.
We're allowed to have
a little fun
here.
there. So if you have any picks that you would like to send our way, submit them at Cedar Lee Theater using the hashtag CedarLee3, the number 3. As always, thank you for tuning in to Cedar Lee Radio and lending us your ears this week. All the music heard on the show is original music written by Grant Heineman and performed by the New Heights Jazz Ensemble, used with their permission, of course. Visit clevelandcinemas.com for correct showtimes and to purchase advance tickets. Also, there are links in the show notes. You can use those if you'd like as well. Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. We are at Cedar Lee Theater, spelled with an R-E at the end because we're fancy like that. Don't forget to subscribe to the show wherever you find your podcast, and while you're subscribing, leave us a rating and review, or better yet, tell a fellow film geek about the show. We'll see you at the movies.